Okay, so this is part two of not part two, I had two subjects that I want to talk about in my last recording, and I just ran out of time, I suppose. This is a comment left on my video, Sometimes We Feel Caged In, which I recently uploaded. The comment goes like this: the more you think, the more caged you might feel paradoxically. Okay, so let's get there. So the video here going, sometimes you feel caged in. I'm just talking about feeling caged in the world that we live in today, with the lockdowns, with the potential needles, with the whatever, the whole drill, right? That we feel kind of caged in, we feel kind of pinned down, we feel the stress in the world, with the fear that's going around. It doesn't feel pleasant, it doesn't feel nice. We feel that we have to, sanitize our hands every time we go into a store. We have to wear these masks or whatever it is. It's not fun. It's not fun. It's not fun. And kind of what I'm saying is that not only that, but we're around people that are enforcing all of these fears and whatever it is, and the people that we speak to, it's not nice. But heaven forbid, I say that it's not nice. Heaven forbid I actually honor the way that I'm feeling. Oh, that's sacrilegious. How dare you do that? Don't you know it's all in the mind? Don't you know it's just the way that you think? It's just your perception. Anyway, so this guy says, the more you think, the more caged you might feel paradoxically. Okay, so he's not really writing this out correctly, but the more you think about that you're caged in, the more you feel paradoxically. Well, it's a paradox. So I'm not quite sure. Now that I read it, I'm not quite sure if I understand it, or maybe I'm overthinking this. The more you think, the more caged you might feel paradoxically. Okay. So it finishes like this. Maybe we should try to find meaning and enjoyment in what's happening now. Okay. So I reply, thanks to the subscriber. The meaning you speak about, I feel for myself, is honoring my feelings and my experience. Yes, at times my thinking changes, and I do feel free. I feel free because of my own actions to remember and embody who I am, even while feeling caged in. To know my truth, to know my free will that I have achieved by knowing who I am. I think being in a lockdown is what it is. Being in a prison cell for others is being in a prison cell. To try and change one's thinking about the reality is to disassociate oneself from the discomfort, to suppress not only the emotions, but the reality of the experience. Like, for example, when a woman is being abused by her husband, let's just say physically abused, and you come along and you say, the more you think you are being abused, the more you make the reality of you being abused real, the more you will feel like you're being abused. Tell a hungry man who hasn't eaten in 5 days, the more you think you are hungry, the more you are going to feel hungry. And when you come along and say to the man, why don't you find enjoyment in what's happening now? You see, my friend, you are gaslighting the person by telling them to change their mind, to change the reality, and to disassociate from their reality. This is psychologically damaging for the person. Rather, you should feel and hear. Share the experience of the person if they are feeling caged in. Sorry, let me say that again. Rather, you should feel and hear. Okay, I didn't really write this correctly. I get frustrated. I'm a slow typer and it takes me forever. And I feel like it's sometimes a waste of time. Rather, because I don't know who I'm speaking to. Rather, you should feel and hear, share the experience of the person if they are feeling caged in. Stand in their shoes with them, show comfort, show care. By understanding, see where you can assist, because very soon you can be sure you'll be in a similar situation, and what you will want is a loving hand, a warm, tender heart, to know that you are felt, loved, and supported. Okay? I carry on over here. I really get carried. I get carried away with these folks. I don't know. I cannot just leave it alone. And it's good that I don't leave it alone. Because again, I think we need to really be realistic and honor how we're feeling and the experiences that we are in, and not try and sugarcoat and candy coat and rose tinted glasses it and for whatever it is. Because again, we're denying the experience, we're denying our opportunity to grow through the discomfort, to grow through the pain, grow through the suffering, and become heroic by it. What most people do, this is how the new age works. It teaches you to disassociate. It teaches you again that it's just that if you see the evil in the world, that's the evil within yourself. If you see the corruption in the world, then you see the corruption in yourself. Don't look at it, don't look at it, don't look at it. Denial, denial, denial. Keep calm and carry on. So what the New Age preaches. This is the problem, and I just, it's just dime a dozen. It's everywhere. This New Age type of thinking, which is so unhelpful, and I wish people would see through it. I wish they would see the insincerity of it. I would see how spiritually and heartfully bankrupt it is. I mean, I'd really like for people to do that, so we wouldn't be gaslighting one another like we are doing now. So I carry on over here. I'm not really concerned or looking for enjoyment. I can eat ice cream and lie in a bubble bath if I want to feel enjoyment. I'm interested more in feeling fulfillment, feeling my value, more than just enjoyment, which is not a very deep, meaningful and rich experience anyways, as much as feeling fulfilled is. We have to be honest with ourselves. We are put in this world as an experience of feeling limited and having to struggle with the nature of this world and ourselves. By telling someone to think different about their situation does not allow the person to take action, if possible, with their situation. For example, the husband who beats his wife, by telling the wife, the husband who beats the wife, and by telling the wife not to think about it, ignore it, and suppress the reality, does not create the need for her to move into courage and take action. Makes sense? Does that make sense, folks? And what I'm saying, maybe I've misunderstood what this commenter is saying, but this is dime a dozen. This is just, repeat. You hear this somewhere else and just repeat it. I don't know if this person has. Maybe we should try to find meaning and enjoyment. Meaning is within the discomfort. Meaning is in the meaning is I'm actually feeling. I'm actually experiencing this. I'm actually met with this challenge. I'm met with something, and now it's meaningful. That means I'm alive. That means there's action to be taken. That means that I have something inside of myself that I need to, bring out that can overcome this. That can, survive this, thrive this, grow from this, learn from this, and whatever it is. It's an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity for courage. It's an opportunity for patience. It's an opportunity for faith. Or something or other. Not to be like, well, if you just change your thinking about it, and you just pretend that, I don't know if this is what he's saying, but if you just pretend that you're not caged and you don't feel that you're caged, and then you're not caged in. You see, and again, this taps into the imagination, which is also very, very dangerous. I haven't spoken about the imagination, and I'm not going to really get into it now. But the imagination can be, an escape into a non-fiction. I'm saying into a fiction reality, right? And it can be very useful. Look, the imagination is like fire. It can save your life by keeping you warm, in the freezing cold, or it can burn your house down. It can burn you alive. It's very, very powerful. And the imagination is very, very powerful. In fact, I think what the Matrix actually is the imagination. I think it's not the imagination itself, but the simulated reality of the Matrix is the imagination. When you hear that this is a simulated reality, that's what the Matrix says that it is in the movie. It's a simulated reality. The simulated reality is that we are put into the imagination. Majority of people live in the imagination. The Truman Show exists in the imagination. That's the terrain. That's the landscape. Is the imagination. Otherwise, it couldn't exist. It couldn't exist. Imagine yourself to be a rock star. Imagine yourself to find the perfect woman at the age of in your early 20s or mid 20s, settle down and spend the rest of your lives together. When you don't know who the hell you are. But just imagine that beautiful wedding day and that beautiful dress and how beautiful she's going to look. And just imagine how codependent you're going to be on one another and how you can be forever in each other's arms and it's just imagine. Imagine that money will make you happy. Right? Imagine that fame and fortune will make you happy and give you meaning in this life. Imagine that this life can just be about the material and you will feel fulfilled. It's a joke, it's a hoax, but it's imagine, right? Imagine yourself to be somebody, who's beautiful, who's sexy, and that's what we do. So we suppress, again, all the parts that we don't like about ourselves into the shadow, and all the parts that we think are gorgeous, are not. Which are, we just invent in the imagination, well, I'm absolutely sexy. or whatever it is, but you're not. Or like, it's just we create it. I feel that the image that we create of ourselves, the false image that we create of ourselves, that we wish for other people to see of us, and that we see of ourselves, lies within the imagination. I mean, there's much more to be said on this, and I'm not focused on this right now. Imagination, like sexual activity. Imagine. Like these. You imagine. How do I put it? I don't know. Like. It's make believe. It's make believe. It's like the woman to dress up like a nurse, or like a high school girl or something like that, or whatever it is, and you play these different roles or whatever it is. It's just make believe. It's these fantasies. That's the word I wanted to use. Fantasies. These sexual fantasies, right? Where do these sexual fantasies come from? They come from porn. A lot of the time, they just come from porn, or a lot of the time they also come from. The underworld within ourselves, the sort of the wounded psyche, so to speak, in a sense, or the suppressed emotion, or suppressed a lot of things that take on a new type of life, if you will, a Jekyll, if you will, from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Is it which one's Hyde? Is that the alter ego, in a way? The alter ego, in a sense, if you want to call it, is based in the imagination, right? I think the superego is based in the imagination to a large degree. Okay, but that's not what I wanted to get into in this talk. But that's what the New Age does, is that it's like, if you can go into the imagination and perceive it from the imagination, then you think that you understand it all, and it makes sense. But all you've done is that you've imagined it, like to try and make sense of the duality of the nature of this world, of evil, like a lot of these things. You go into the imagination, and you try and imagine, well, this is what it means. And then a lot of people say, well, that is what it means. Like religion is based on that. Religion, a lot of the time, is based on the imaginative, right? The mystical, a lot of the time, is based on the imaginative. It's not based on, I would say, a lot of the time, with the intuition, right? What you feel intuitively. Like you feel, the spirits of the plants, or Gaia, or, the spirits, the ancestors, or something like that, right? It's no, you imagine this God with a white beard and long hair, and whatever it is, imagine God. So you imagine this figure a lot of the time, and so on and so forth. And so we conclude, because we imagine it and we perceive it, and then we have a joined understanding or concept that this is what it is. But it's not, it doesn't exist. But we manifest that again into reality through the imagination, through the subconscious, or through the psyche, because we do manifest this reality. And we do manifest, the controllers in that way. We do. And so the imagination is a very, very dicey place. Okay? It's very, very dangerous. If not, it's like the holies of holies. If you ask me, in the holies of holies, it was only the high priest that could enter, and he had to have a pure mind and pure thought. Otherwise, he would burn up and die. And the imagination can do that. The imagination can run wild with us, in unbelievable ways. But I also think the imagination is the tool to connect to the astral realms, but also a lot of people do think, well, I'm astral traveling, I'm projecting. What do they call it when you, or many other things, even telekinesis, or all, like a lot of these things people imagine. They imagine talking to aliens, they imagine, and some of it's true, they imagine seeing ghosts, they imagine all these things, and a lot of the time I think it's because of certain mental instabilities within the person. Again, like I think I've spoken about this before, you know, with schizophrenic patients, they imagine themselves to be the Messiah or Jesus or these figures of high importance, because in themselves they just feel really, really shattered and broken because of the trauma that they've experienced in their youth. So they envision, you know, these powerful beings beyond measure. And you see this with men, you know, imagining themselves to be these muscular sort of, you know, really aggressive type of, you know, men and women to, you know, that's what, you know, culture gives the role, is imagine yourself to be like a Kardashian, imagine yourself to be like, but it's more masculine now. Imagine yourself to be more like a Rihanna or a Beyonce or a Miley Cyrus or something like it. Imagine yourself to be, these are your leaders, imagine, emulate them basically in your imagination. And then, you know, and through the imagination, you actually, you know, by imagining them, you don't even realizing that you're imitating them and you're copying them, and so on and so forth. So I don't know, I'm getting carried away, but again, a lot of the New Age works in the imagination of there is no self, there is, you are God, right? That's in the imagination, right? That's again a misuse of the imagination. See, the imagination is very powerful. I can tell you, imagine right now that you are riding a horse on the beach, right? And that happened, and you see, and I imagine it, you know, and I don't know, the sun is setting or something like that, and whatever it is, and it's a cool ocean air breeze that you can feel, you know, and imagine now how long did that take you to do? Very short to do. I mean, just imagine that, and okay, look, I mean, it's not as real, but if you have to concentrate and meditate on it and go through and envision it completely, you imagine it. That's how powerful it is. But you were sitting in your chair, you know, you were sitting on the john listening to whatever you do. But you can imagine it. And so we can imagine like, oh, well, there is no self, you know, we are all God. I can imagine myself to be enlightened, you know, I'm awakened, or whatever it is. I imagine myself to be an American, a South African, a Jew, a Christian, a Muslim. You know, I imagine myself to be. And whatever that means. In other words, what I'm saying a lot of the time is that it's just imagination. These things don't really exist. I imagine most people imagine themselves to be very noble people, very honest people, very sincere people, very mature people, right? Again, they imagine themselves to be, because they've created the self-image that they feel more comfortable with to display to the world and to consider themselves by. But they've created, that is what I think is the... Now, I don't know, because I haven't seen many people talking about this. So I don't know, maybe I'm imagining all of this. Maybe I'm just dreaming this all up. Could be, but it kind of makes sense. But you get it. So we imagine ourselves to be things that we are not, to compensate for the lack of value that we feel in ourselves. But when you are truly connected to who you are, you know your worth and your authenticity, you don't need to imagine yourself to be anything. You don't need to imagine yourself to be in high power of controlling, of influence or something like that. You don't have to imagine yourself to be a guru or a shaman or a Sikh or a saint or a South African, or you don't have to imagine yourself to be anything. You just who you naturally be, who you are, and the experience of who you are, you know. I think just coming back, like I think just imagine the now, just be in the now, just imagine it. It's just the imagination. I think for people to be really present, you need to be present with the underlying emotions, your underlying traumas, your underlying history, your narrative, the sensation of being, right, in a way, okay? Your sensation, anyway, that's a whole other thing. But so many people, just imagine the now. And, you know, Eckhart Tolle, the way he speaks is like in a trance, hypnosis. And he just puts you straight into the imagination. Now, some will say that it's an alpha state or a beta, I'm not sure which one it is, or a delta state. I think it's a delta state, which I'm sure is part of the imagination. I think dreams happen in the imagination. I think animals can imagine as well. Now that I think about it, I don't know. Anyway, I'm getting carried away here. So you see, that's what I think he's saying over here. The more you think that you're caged in, the more that you think you're caged in, the more you feel it. So if you imagine that you are not caged in, then you won't feel it. If you imagine that you're not in an abusive relationship with a woman who's being abused by a husband, then you won't have the experience. Imagine that it is not what it is, and therefore shall it be, if that makes sense. All right, folks, enough on that. Take care. Be well.